Frank Oliver was also a Scientologist from 1986 to 1992. He was part of the investigative arm of Scientology that Jesse just described, investigating former members and perceived enemies. Frank?
Hi. I'm not accustomed to public speaking, and the reason I'm here today is because of someone who couldn't be here with us today. It was someone I never met, and her name's Lisa Mcpherson. I left Scientology in 1992. Originally it was my idea, but after they discovered that I wanted to leave, having been an investigative officer for the church, they thought it was a good idea that I left also. In 1996, while going on the internet, I happened to get curious about what had happened in Scientology since I had left. I went to, I believe, Arnie's webpage and read about Lisa Mcpherson. Thought back on my involvement with the church and how my family, my friends who knew that I had been involved in Scientology actually never knew what it was that I did in Scientology. I worked in an area of the church that most of the church members themselves don't fully know what that area of the church does. It's the Office of Special Affairs. What that particular division of the church does is investigate perceived enemies and go after the critics of the church. When you go into Scientology, whether you're going through one of their orgs or their missions, most of the people that I've met are good people. In fact, I think the majority of people that are in Scientology are good people. However, they've been lied to. They came into Scientology looking for spiritual enlightenment. They came into Scientology looking for concrete answers to questions that they may have had, much like the questions that I had before I got in Scientology. A system to answer these questions that wasn't as belief-based maybe as other religions are. Hubbard's quote-unquote technology offered, answers in black and white and a repeatable process by which a result could be obtained. However, these are tricks. These are parlor tricks. This is the work of a master hypnotist and someone with a very different idea as to what helping your fellow man is about. Most of the people in the organization that I was involved in Miami, I think are good people. I am currently listed as an enemy of the Church of Scientology. The people who I had considered my friends for many years can't speak to me. They can't tell me what's going on. They can't talk to me because the church has told them he's an enemy. He's an SP. He is someone who's trying to stop your progress. He's trying to take away your spiritual freedom. That's the farthest thing from the truth. Scientology says one thing and does something else. If the things that Hubbard had written about Scientology were true, then I guess everyone up here would be a Scientologist, because we all have our own mind. We make decisions for ourselves. We can't be intimidated by anyone. We are self-determined. If that is in fact what Scientology does do to people, then I guess everybody in this room is a Scientologist. But that's not the case. The vast majority of people that are in Scientology aren't aware of what the organization really does, what their money really goes towards, what it's really about. When you join Scientology, you don't know that it's about Xenu and the space cooties. You don't know you're gonna wind up spending the rest of your life giving all your money and your time to Scientology. You don't know that this is what Hubbard came up with. It's not even good science fiction, it's bad science fiction. But by the time you hear that story, you've been indoctrinated under this hypnosis, which is Scientology. You've become addicted to this process called auditing, where you sit there and you confess or you relieve yourself of things that that may be burdening you. You're not truly there because of the auditing. You're there because you feel better because you're telling somebody about your problems maybe. At some point, doubt starts creeping into your mind about, well, what do they do with that information that they write down? How secret is this information? Well, for any Scientologists who may see this show, let me tell you, I can look at the pre-clear folders of anyone at my org at any time I wanted to when I was an investigations officer. And if you ever crossed the line, I would go into your pre-clear folder and look for information that could be used against you if you decided to speak out against the church. Now, how does that sound to you? Jesse touched on it just a bit, but how does that sound to you? You go into what you feel is a spiritual confessional, and hear your innermost secrets, your missteps, your mistakes are recorded and then later used against you if you ever try to speak out against the same organization that is spiritually blackmailing you. Now, my pre-clear folder has been gone through several times since I spoke out against the church, and they have tried to pull out everything and anything I ever did, whether I wet the bed when I was 5 years old or stole a piece of candy when I was 12. And it'll all come out. So I'm well aware that I'm quote-unquote fair game for Scientology right now, which is the policy letter that they follow when someone speaks out against them. Some people aren't as fortunate as I was. I was able to go into Scientology, derive some benefit from it, and see that there may be something there. But I never spoke out about the things that I didn't agree with. And I think that was my mistake. And there are many people in Scientology that keep a lot of things to themselves, or may have one trusted individual that they can share these things with. Because if you tell the wrong person, much like the oppression that existed in Russia or may still exist now and currently exists in Cuba, I tell him something, I don't know if he's going to turn around and write a knowledge report, which is basically a report to my senior or someone further up in the organization to say, hey, Frank's having, Frank said blah, blah, blah about L. Ron Hubbard, or Frank said something about disagreeing with a particular policy letter. Now, that kind of paranoia is part of the mechanism that Scientology uses to coerce its members. It's got everybody scared of everybody. And I know that these small cells of individuals exist in the organization of people that do confide in other people, and they do share their doubts with them. I had people like that in my organization in Miami, and I know people in the Sea Org have people that they can talk to, people you consider a safe terminal, someone you can tell something to and you know it's not going to come back. Because you, as a person, when you feel that doubt, you've got to be able to tell somebody. In Scientology, there is no there exists no mechanism for disagreement without dishonor. If you disagree, you are the enemy. You have to toe the line, you have to follow their policies and what it is that they want you to say, what they want you to think. But always remembering in the back of your mind, they have written down everything you ever confessed to in an auditing session, or everything you ever confessed to in a confessional. And they will use that information against you. What other church, and I hate to use the word Scientology and church in the same sentence, but what other church does that to its members? After I joined Scientology in 1986, I was a staff member for several years. I left for a short period of time and came back and started doing some things for the Office of Special Affairs. I was in the library, and this is all pre-internet now, and I got on one of the computer databases and typed in the word Scientology. And lo and behold, several very derogatory articles came out about Scientology. And I read every single one of them. And I read everything about Hubbard, and I read everything about the critics and the top 10 or 9 members of Scientology being indicted and going to jail for having infiltrated government offices. I read everything I could, and I said, wait a minute, I'm involved in something like this. I need to find out more. So I took everything that I investigated and did some more investigating, put everything together and brought it into the Office of Special Affairs in my church and said, hey, look what I came up with. And they saw that and got real nervous. I said, where did you get this? I said, I didn't get it from anywhere. I was in the library, and I told them exactly what I did. And they didn't like it, and they liked it. They liked it because I went to them to get the answers. They didn't like it because it was pretty well put together. I didn't have anyone else to talk to. I only had them to talk to at the time. What they did at that point was ask me what I felt about the information that I read, after they, of course, handed me their version of everything I had read. How the government had planted the documents that they allegedly had stole in the church so that they would get in trouble. Okay? I had a lot invested in Scientology at this point, not monetarily as much as I did in time, and in the fact that people who knew me knew I was involved in Scientology. I made a decision that the only way I was ever going to find out the truth was to find out the truth. So when they asked me to join, which was shortly thereafter, I agreed. I became the investigations officer in Miami. I showed what they determined to be promise in the area of what I was doing, which was running background checks on individuals and checking out anyone they wanted me to check out, driver's licenses, addresses. There's a long form for filling for this type of investigation. They asked me to go to Los Angeles and be in what was called the CAN unit. The CAN unit was a unit set up within Scientology to investigate and to destroy the cult awareness network, which unfortunately Scientology was able to do. I was flown to LA, where I spent 2.5 months there working for senior management of the Church of Scientology, including some of their attorneys, in investigating the board of directors and anyone else involved in the cult awareness network, solely for the purpose of destroying the organization. What was told to me was that these people were trying to destroy Scientology because I still hadn't bit deep enough for them. So they kept me close and they let me into certain things, but I knew that there was much more there than what they were telling me. I got to see enough in 2.5 months that when I came back, shortly thereafter, I walked into the ethics office and said, you know, I've got a lot of bills and I'm spending an awful lot of time here. I think I really need to route off staff, which immediately sent a lot of bells and whistles and people frantically looking for my senior. She came over and immediately demanded the keys to the organization. And they put me in the ethics office, and there I sat for several months. And I said, I really need to leave Scientology. And I never told them why. About a month or a month and a half after that, I walked into the organization as I had been coming in repeatedly, filling out their paperwork and their forms, writing up my OWs, or overts and withholds, which are transgressions against the organization or other individuals, basically more confessions. And they handed me a piece of paper that said, suppressive person declare. And I looked at it and went, wow. I've sent a lot of information on other people to get them declared, but I've never had this happen to me before. I wasn't really that upset because, after all, I was trying to get out at the time anyway. And they declared me with no justice, because within the organization, justice is something that you can either play the game according to the policy and never get anything, or you can just take what they give you. At this point, I was done with Scientology. I wanted to put it all behind me. I didn't want to have anything to do with things that I saw. So I left until 1996, when I got on the internet and heard about Lisa Mcpherson. Now, one thing that I found out is that Scientology always claims that they have 100% results that can be duplicated anywhere on the planet in any organization that correctly and standardly applies their policy and their technology. And I think Ken Nandar put it best. Scientology claims to have cures for medical and mental illness. Lisa Mcpherson, as well as many others who have died at the hands of Scientology, prove that they do not. We only know about the ones that we do. But who knows what really goes on over the rainbow out at their Golden Era studios. There they can bury their failures quietly. We are here because we believe that Scientology and the individuals who run it are evil. The world knows more and more every day that this is a fact. More and more people that are or were involved in Scientology speak out. If only to let others know to stay away. Some of us have seen and heard of things Scientology does not tell its regular public. Well, we, and I mean all of us in this room, are going to change all that. The media takes a lot of hits for being too inquisitive sometimes. Well, I think that it's the media's responsibility to put the truth in front of the public. And I think they would be failing in their responsibility if they didn't put the truth in front of the public. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot more to Scientology than meets the eye. You are going to see in the coming weeks and months, more and more people are going to be speaking out against Scientology. At every picket, at every protest, every time a car drives by and they see someone standing in front of an organization, more and more people go, yeah, I always knew that was a scam. Yeah, I always knew those people were strange. Isn't that some kind of UFO kooky cult or something? It goes on every day. Scientology claims 8 million members. No, 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 no. Not 8 million. 8 million people that may have bought a book or filled out a little card or taken a personality test. That doesn't make them a member. But one day, Scientology is going to look up, and there's going to be 8 million people, all right. 8 million critics. 8 million people like me. 8 million people like Stacy, like Arnie, like Rod, like Jesse. And we're going to stand all together, and we're going to watch the collapse of Scientology. It's not something that we are looking forward to with any kind of vengeance. It is an eventuality that will happen. It will be the biggest story of this century, and it is your responsibility to make sure that that happens just by telling the truth.